Man with Gareth McGuinness.
Welcome back to the 12th Man podcast. We are going to be discussing all of last weekend's football, including a bumper one for Liverpool at Old Trafford, where United were beat by 3-0.
You nearly messed up there. That didn't happen.
I fixed that pretty quickly there. Of course, Liverpool won 3-0 at Old Trafford. We'll be looking at all the fallouts from that game, including Mo Salah's interview, Mo Salah's sort of contract situation, and where he ranks along the best Premier League players we've come across. We'll look at United's performance yet another season, and as the next 4 games crucial and some tough games on there in the league. We'll look back at the rest of the weekend's results, including Arsenal dropping points at home to Brighton. Of course, Declan Rice controversially sent off. We'll dissect that incident. Everton were 2-0 up when I looked at one stage on Saturday. And I looked back 10 minutes later and beat 3-2, an astonishing collapse. We'll look at the rest of the weekend's results, including a Haaland hatrick, a second already as Man City joined Liverpool as the only team they won their opening 3 games. And we'll also look at Spurs' profligate approach in front of goal, dominating football matches, but unable to get results, it seems, especially away from home. And we'll finish off talking about the big game this weekend. No Premier League, of course, but Ireland do take on England in a competitive game, their first competitive game since, I believe, the Euros in 1990, the Italian 90 in 1990. So incredible. There's been some friendlies in there, of course. Well, that's it. There's been some friendlies in there, of course, but of course, there's never a friendly in these games, but there's actually points on the line tomorrow. And of course, there's 2 new managers in both. So we'll finish off talking about better than most because Liverpool are sitting pretty at the top there.
Well, joint top, technically second, but it was it's a dream start. 3 games, 3 wins, 9 points, no goals conceded. You can't ask for better than that.
100%. Of course, Liverpool did run Man United ragged at times on Sunday at Old Trafford. Suppose a lot of people were saying this was Slott's first big test, and he passed it in flying colours. I mean, a lot of people were saying it could be a draw, but Liverpool, after they got that goal, the first goal, it was really one-way traffic after that. And Liverpool were by far the better team and deserved their win. So, how did you? I mean, I think you did say you fancied Liverpool just to nick it, but did you expect it to be so comfortable in the end?
No, I honestly didn't. Well, for the first 20 minutes, I thought it was an even game. But as you say, then once we got the disallowed goal for the offside, I think after that we took control, and obviously we had a helping hand from Casemiro. That was one of the worst performances or best performances, whichever way you want to look at it, that I've seen in a long time. But I think we controlled the game in, and we limited them. Opportunities in. I know they had one with Mazraoui, who forced a save from Alisson, and then Zerki had a few chances. But all in all, we could have been 4 or 5 up. I think there was one where Szoboszlai was taking the piss a bit, and he should have just smashed it in for 4-0.
That was the biggest insult to United, that it was walking piss at that stage, and Szoboszlai thought he could do that in the box, but in the end it was irrelevant because the game was over. Callum just saying here we've had an easy start, but we've been good as well. Likely won the next 2 games, and they'll be one of a few managers. They won his first 5 games in the Premier League, and Liverpool do have some favourable games coming up, both of them at home, I believe. Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest. Yeah. Bournemouth, of course, have been pretty good so far, so you'd expect them to be a bit more of a test than Forest. But Liverpool at home are notoriously strong. I mean, when I was watching the first 20 minutes on Sunday, it did feel like you're watching a completely different Liverpool team, even though it was the same players, but there wasn't that kind of let's go out and blow them away in the first 20-25 minutes. It was very patient. And Liverpool weren't going to. If you remember the first 20 minutes, I think United had about 62% of possession, which in recent times it's been the other way around, where Liverpool have been on the front foot. Liverpool were quite happy. They set off, and United had a half chance here and there. Liverpool had a half chance. Obviously, the offside goal, but really the game turned on that one goal. And I mean, Liverpool were were dominant really after that. United did have a couple of chances, but in the second half when the game was over at 3-0. But I was kind of sitting there at half time, 2-0. I was thinking back, if this had been last season, not so much that Liverpool are a better team under Slot, but the way they play doesn't leave them as open. And I didn't really see United getting into the game. Whereas I thought if United had been playing a Klopp team, they would have tried to go for 3-4-5 and could have ended up drawing the game 2-2. And that's how Klopp's teams went, and they had more success than failure. But Slot does seem to favour that more secure approach, and like they are still playing decent football. They haven't been boring. It's probably not as great to watch for the neutral, but as a fan, you're probably thinking it's a bit more patient and a bit more smart. So, I mean, it all looks positive at the moment, though.
And as Callum said there, we've had a pretty easy start, and we should win our next 2 games. There will be tougher tests to come, but you just enjoy it while it's happening. And I don't think we're bored to watch either, but it's nice not having heart attacks every time the opposition goes forward, and it's nice to feel like secure. And know what? As much as he's got stick, I think Ryan Gravenberch has been really good so far. I think he's been solid in that 6.
The only chances he really conceded in the game was from crosses on the box. There's a couple of chances for Xerxes, but it wasn't like the old games where they were on the front foot and then they lost the ball and all of a sudden it was 4v2. They always had players back and in position. And I suppose that's why they haven't conceded any goals. I know on another day they might have conceded 1 or 2 at United. Xerxes probably should have at least scored one of those chances.
Yeah, but the header, I think he should have scored.
Liverpool could have scored more as well. And they were quite dangerous at times on the counter-attack in that second half. And I mean, Mo Salah was a big part of that, Owen. I mean, what did you think of his performance on Sunday? Because I think Gary Neville says, and for me, there was a lot more than Salah, but he has the finished article. If you look at the United's players, they don't have anyone like Salah. And in those big games, he makes a count, and he was ruthless with his assists and he's finished. They make a 3-0 game over.
I mean, there's not much more I can say about Salah that I've already said over the years. For me, he's up there as one of the best ever to play, not just for Liverpool, but in the Premier League. And but for me as well, I want to give a shout out to Luis Diaz. I thought he often gets criticised by a lot of Liverpool fans for his lack of finishing, but you can't really put that at his door so far this season. So he's been good too. But as for Salah, it's just pay him what he wants. I don't care at this point.
I mean, is he in that kind of Henry, Rooney, Ronaldo, those type of big name superstars that are sort of often there's the debates about who was the best. Obviously there's the best debate about your Gerrards, Lampards, and Scholes, but I don't think anyone puts them as the best ever to play in the Premier League. They might sort of rank them in terms of best midfielders, but it's kind of always the Ronaldos, the Rooneys, and the Henrys that kind of get that pedestal. Definitely not attacking area, but Sal's numbers at the minute, and even with age, looks like his game's developing. Like his assists have been brilliant at times, and the passes, and he does seem like a player that can go on and play for a number more years.
It's obviously he doesn't have the medals that a Ronaldo or an Henry has, but he's up there as Callum says with Henry. Like
he could beat that this season.
And he probably will if he keeps his form up, which I have no doubt that he will. And he looks a lot. Maybe I'm reading into it, but he looks a lot happier this season than he did last year. I know we'll speak about his situation, but for me, he's the best. He's the best right winger to ever play in the Premier League, and I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, funny enough, right winger is left footed, but that is kind of the modern day player. I mean, a lot of talk at the minute about who the best players in the world are. Mbappe often gets that pedestal, but I mean, I think I spoke to somebody on Sunday about this. I would rather have Salah on my team than Mbappe.
Maybe because Mbappe has the age factor, he is more ahead of him than Salah does. But for me, I wouldn't, in that position anyway, I wouldn't swap Salah for anyone at the moment.
And of course, Liverpool made great waves with their one, but what made even bigger waves, I think, after the game was his interview on Sky. Not sure on the wording of it, but it did. I don't know whether there's a language thing, but he kind of says it was his last year, but then there was reference point that he was saying that it's because his contract runs out at the end of the season. But I mean, what do you make of all this now? I mean, we're on the September. It wasn't that long ago we were in this podcast back in June when the fixtures was announced, and the seasons change, the months go on, and before you know it, we're Christmas here, and if this hasn't sorted out, he's going to be the biggest asset on the market that you can get for without paying a transfer fee.
I don't think it'll get that though. I think all the wording that I've seen this week anyway is that Liverpool are relaxed about it. Liverpool want to get it done. And the crucial point is I'm hearing that he wants to stay at Liverpool. He doesn't. I actually read a thing that he's looked at how other players have gone on in Saudi, particularly Sadio Mane, and that didn't work out. So, but by all accounts, he's settled in Liverpool and he wants to stay. So it's up to Liverpool now to get it done, and they have to get it done for me. I know there was a lot of talk last year about we should cash in, but no way, no, I would let him go.
Well, I think last year, if you cash in, you get a huge fee from him. But, at this stage now, he's already on big wages, so what's an extra 50 grand a week to keep him? If you're already paying him 400 and he wants 450, I mean, you're already paying him huge wages, so
and he's not, and he has no signs of slowing down like in the early weeks of the season, so I can't see any downside of why we won't give Manu three.
That's the only possible reason he doesn't sign. Do you think comes down to money? If Liverpool say to him, look, you're at that stage of your career now that maybe we aren't used to giving players in their 30s these kind of mega bumper contracts, and they say to him, look, do you fancy reducing your wage to stay on, or do you believe that Liverpool will try and negotiate that, or do you just think they have to just give him what he wants? Because I can't see him taking a wage cut. Minimum, he'll stay on the same wage, but
no, he's on 350, 400 say at the minute. As you say, I know we're talking about it, it's mad, but what's another 50 grand to a player like him? Like they say, we don't give contracts to players in their 30s, but not many players in their 30s are as good as him. So you have to look at it that way as well.
Yeah. And of course, you think Trent will stay. So do you think Van Dijk will be the one now that makes way?
I don't know. I have a feeling now they'll all stay with the Salah thing coming in. I don't know. I just have a feeling that
he looks a lot better in this system, Van Dijk as well, because he's got a lot more protection in front of him. Because Liverpool aren't open up and leaving him exposed.
Our whole defence does, to be honest. I think Kanate's had a good start this season. Trent's had a good start this season, even though he seems to get hooked at 75 minutes at the minute.
Cal thinks all three stay.
I agree.
Be interesting to see, because until you get the first one done, I mean,
if you asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have said Salah's gone and the other two will stay, but now I'm confident we'll get all three done.
Yeah, I never got the feeling Salah wanted to go. So I don't really doesn't change much. I get the feeling that this is a Liverpool problem, not a Salah problem. Well, or they feel that going an hour 2 years on these big wages, and they're worried in case he does fall off. But I mean, there's no evidence of it. No evidence suggests that he's going to start.
And the thing is, I don't. If he does leave Liverpool, I don't think he'll go to Saudi. To be honest, he's too good for Saudi.
I think that Saudi thing's gone now at this stage.
But he's worth more. Is worth more for Liverpool keeping him than it would be to get a proper replacement in. That's just my opinion.
Let's talk about the opposition, because Man United beat 3-0, and it was like press and record and play from a Sky analysis from yesteryear, because it's the same problems that keep coming up. United exposed again through the midfield, and let's be honest, I think Gary Neville was pretty bang on with this. I mean, Liverpool's midfield isn't Liverpool wanted players, and they come under midfield. Fans wanted, so I doubt Liverpool fans are completely happy with that midfield. Of course, they've had a good start to the season, but if they were to lose a couple of games, they would probably go back. We should have strengthened that area. But for them to be completely dominated in midfield again was a huge issue. And you think about Gravenberch and McAllister not really playing in their favourite positions, and they're doing a great job on there. Whereas a legend like Casemiro, yes, he's getting on, but he made basic errors. Bruno Fernandes was very quiet again in another big game. And you think about, unless Ugarte comes in and really changes it, they're going to struggle to compete with most teams, because last year that midfield was getting tore apart at times, and it was only down to But we're going to talk about like Spurs later. It was only down to teams per finishing that United maybe got as many points as they did, and they were fortunate at times they did win games.
There's a lot of pressure on Ugarte and they come on and work straight away because of it. Just say he comes on and doesn't work. Where do they turn in? They brought on the young player Collier for Casemiro at halftime on Sunday, and like he's a young kid. You can't put too much pressure on him. They've run Manny under the ground. Fernandez is probably their best player.
I thought Manu actually had a pretty good game up until that mistake he made. I thought he was the one bright spark for United at the times. I thought he played in the half turn. He looks confident on the ball, and I think he's only going to get better. I do think they've unearthed a gem there, but of course, you don't want to overplay him and get him injured, and as you say, run him under the ground. But there seems to be a lot of pressure on that young kid. They do it, and when he turned to Collier, he's let McTominay go. Of course, they feel they've got a better player in Ugarte, but I mean that's a massive issue because Casemiro, I think the fact he was hooked at half time tells you that he's not really feeling that Casemiro's up to it anymore. He's finally accepted that. So unless Ugarte's fit every week, where do you turn to? Do you go to that young kid? Because I think Casemiro's days are numbered because when you're subbed off at half time in a big game with a name like Casemiro, I think that's probably the manager telling you that he knows it's time to change it and go a different way.
And you seen Ten Hag after the game saying he has some strange interview, Ten Hag, but he said, "I'm not Harry Potter. I can't make Ugarte be fit, so it could take weeks or months." So I don't know what it comes out.
Well, this is the thing that I think a lot of United fans were happy last year when they won the FA Cup, and of course the year before they won the League Cup. But I mean, the general league form, although that first season they did okay in the league, finished third since the start of last season, and it looks like a very similar start to this season, where I mean they didn't deserve to win any of their 3 games at home, or the 3 games they played. The Fulham game would have been a fair draw. I think it would have had a finish 0-0. The Brighton game, you could argue they were unlucky to lose that, but I don't think they ever done enough to win it. And they were well beat by Liverpool. And we'll talk about a team who haven't got as many points as they should, but you can see a totally different sort of game and that they're playing and they're not scoring, but there's something to grab onto. And I suppose at the minute when you don't really feel that there's anything to get behind there. And I think Roy Keane said that after the game, and it's just the same old story. Once they go 1-0 down as well in games, I know they've had a couple of comebacks, but the response to going behind was really, really poor. They didn't really, you expect sometimes when a team goes 1-0 down, they respond, and it just didn't happen.
No, and even if I remember right, even when we went 3-0 up from the kickoff, they were still showing the replay, and Salah was in, and they could have scored another one.
Yeah,
so
they seem very soft at the moment.
It was the same last season. They go 1-0 down on their head, they just implode. I remember a few games last season. They go 1-0 down, and 5 minutes later, it's 2-0, 3-0. So it seems to be a problem that they've had for a long time, and I honestly don't know where they fix it, because I honestly think unless Ugarte comes in and is a miracle worker, I think United are on for a very similar season to last.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this Ten Hag things, although they've got them 2 trophies to show, but the actual general play and the standard that they're producing is they've got worse since Solskjaer's left?
I don't know if they've got worse, because he was bad, but
spent a hell of a lot more money. But I know Solskjaer did spend, but this is crazy spending in the 3 summers that Ten Hag's been there.
So I just think it's a tough job for anyone to go into. Like the ownership, even though it's a new ownership, they still don't seem to. I don't think they want them, and I think this Van Nistelrooy thing on the sidelines is very strange. I think. I honestly think like if this goes wrong with Ten Hag, it'll be like, right, you're out, Van Nistelrooy, you're the manager now to the end of the season, sort of thing.
Well, we'll look at United's next 4 games very shortly, because there's some real tests in there. The next 40 games they do have cup game against Barnsley at home and a Europa League game at home to AFC 20, but the 4 league games before the next international break are quite tricky. I mean, Rashford again. I think Neville says it's sad to watch at times. Kind of does remind me of when Dele Alli was at Spurs, and it was just going downhill and attitude didn't look there, the body language didn't look right, and of course Dele Alli's spoken since about some of the issues he was having. But with Rashford at the moment, it just looks like it's going downhill, and there's a lack of belief in him. And I'm not sure the appetite's there. They get better. Whether he needs a move, or just he's no motivation anymore when it comes to football, because his performances have been very, very poor. And I think really only by name he's on that team. I think there's other players there that deserve opportunities over him.
Sure, you seen when Garnacho was taken off, the fans booed it like. So that's also what I think about Nunes. Oh, here we go.
We'll answer that in a second, Richard. So we'll answer that in a second. Go ahead.
I lost my train of thought.
Rashford.
No, I was saying Rashford. He stayed on, and Garnacho got taken off. That was booed. There was one particular incident in the game, if you remember. He was running at, I think it was Connor Bradley, and he just stopped and turned around when Bradley came towards him. So there's a lack of belief in the
rock bottom at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lack of belief and there's a lack of confidence, but there must be some. I don't want to speculate on someone's health, but there's definitely something not right there anyway.
We'll answer that question before we move on. Nunes, of course, hasn't featured for long in these 3 games, and he's been coming on as a sub, and the games have been over really when he's come on. So I suppose the pressure's off in that regard. But I mean, he didn't. He looked the same Nunes on Sunday as we've seen before. Do you think already Nunes is he's going to have to do something magical to win slot over, because he seems to favour them all 3. And unless there's injuries, he's not. And of course, Jota is an injury-prone player. He probably will get opportunities, but there's no Europa League this year. So Liverpool, and especially the teams Liverpool, if they play, and most you think there's 3 or 4 big hitters on there in the league phase.
Yeah.
Liverpool are going to have to go pretty strong and probably near enough their best team in most of those games. So, his opportunities are going to be limited. They may be the cups, and he's really going to have to snatch them opportunities when they come. And I just don't sense he's that kind of player that's going to, turn into give me a chance and I'll put it in the net. He kind of needs 3 or 4 to score, and he lets you down more times than he'll win you games.
I as you know, since he signed, I've been one of his fans, but he's not pulled up any trees, and it's up to him now to get the shirt, and whether he can do that or not is another thing. But to be honest, you have to play your best players, and if he's not in form, and the other 3 are, Jota's in form. Even when Gakpo came on against United, he looked lively. So it's up to Nunes now if he wants to fight for his Liverpool career. That's what he has to do.
Do you think he's the 5th choice attacker at the club now? Yeah, you think Gakpo's overtaken him as the 4th?
It seems to be, aye.
Injuries are waiting to happen. A lot of Van Dijk gets injured. Should we have got a backup centre back and defensive midfielder? And that is the worry, isn't it? I suppose that the season hasn't really started yet. We've only playing 1 game a week now. When the international break comes off, you've got the League Cup, you've got the Champions League, Europa League, whatever you're in, and all of a sudden you're playing 3 games a week, and it is more challenging. Is that the worry that this Liverpool team have been left short? If they were to get significant, and I suppose every team's like this. I even think Man City, we know Alvarez, if Haaland gets injured, there's I know they've done it before with a false 9, but it's not guaranteed to work again. And if Liverpool were to lose one of those key players, there's no real cover there at all, is there?
No, because he's only given Endo 1 minute, and that was like in the 89th minute against Brentford. And the centre backs, he doesn't seem to like Joe Gomez or Kwanzaa that much in these early stages. So it is a worry, but every team's going to pick up injuries. You're not going to avoid injuries, so it is going to happen. It's just how we deal with it when it does happen.
Do you think that'll be the reason you don't maybe challenge sort of the top teams, in the Champions League? I don't mean in 1 game, but sort of getting near the latter stages, or getting the sort of the last 4 or 5 games, and you're neck and neck with City and Arsenal. Do you feel that it'll be because there's a lack of quality in the sort of reserves?
Oh, you have to be near perfect now in this day and age to compete with Arsenal and Man City. As Arsenal drew by Brighton there, and everyone's saying, right, that's it. There was 2 points in it last year, and they've already dropped 2 this year. So you have to be near perfect, and you have to have your best players available for that. And it's not always going to be the case week in, week out. So it is going to be interesting when the season progresses, how often teams, not just Liverpool, but every team has their first choice 11 available.
What trophies and position? Very early on in the
Uh,
league predictions.
well, I've said third and I said 2 trophies, so I'll stick with that for now.
United's next 4 games, of course, we look at them. Southampton away is probably the most favourable. Palace away is tricky. Spurs at home. Spurs are playing the way they're playing next month. I look them down. The Spurs taking their chances where they won that game. And Villa away, of course, we know is very difficult. And they've started the season pretty well. So, that's a challenge in 4 games for Ten Hag. Southampton have been pretty poor. Basically, they're going the same way as Burnley, aren't they? Let's play from the back and we'll get caught. But, that'll be a pressure on game for them because they're expected to win that. Palace, who are a decent team, but United will still be probably favourites. They go there and win. And then at home, the Spurs, they'll probably be expected to get at least something there and go into Villa as well and competing. So, you're Man United, people expect you to win games, and you're looking at those 4 at the moment, and you're thinking question marks beside at least 3 of those.
You would expect them to beat Southampton, especially the way Southampton have decided they, as you say, not become Burnley, but do what Burnley done last season and just play the way they did in the Championship. Like, who did Southampton play last? Was it
Brentford?
Brentford. And so
they give away 3 goals and going to give away 5 more.
Some of them goals and some of them chances they gave away was shocking at this level. So you would expect them to beat Southampton. So I'd say that's 3 points. And you know what? They are 3 is a shootout for me, to be honest. Because yes, United would expect
a great record of Palace recently. They've struggled there.
They lost 4-0 at the end of last season there. Spurs is always a tricky game home and away, and Villa away is tough. So I think the only one that I would be confident, and I say confident very loosely, but I would say Southampton's their only banker, and then the R3's either or.
Yeah, he could be under serious pressure in that next international break if he doesn't get, at least 6 or 7 points there. If he's sitting with 3 or 4, like you're going to be way behind. And I think United, although I know they're not expecting to win the league, but if they're sitting, 10 or 12 behind from October, that's not going to go well with fans.
No, that's what Gary Neville said too on Sky. Says they can't be sitting 8th or 9th in October like they were last year.
Yeah. Let's look at the rest of the weekend's results, Owen, because it all kicked off a 12:30 game, and we did all sort of say that this was going to be a tricky one for Arsenal. We sort of I think we both went 2-1 Arsenal, but of course the red card changed that. And I mean, realistically, up until the goal, Brighton made a poor error for the goal, but it was quite a decent, entertaining, even enough game. Brighton went there and played, and I think Brighton played much better than they did against United the week before, and they had to be. But of course, it all changed on the right sent off. Arsenal fans were furious with. How did you see it?
By the letter of the law, he did kick the ball, even though he just slided it away. But I also think Veltman was very lucky to stay on the pitch as well.
Yeah. I mean, the first yellow card, it was crazy from him because he was never going to win the ball.
It was reckless.
And, I don't think he had a particularly great game on Saturday. So maybe that was running for his head, but he's tried a wee cheeky one, as you say, and he's been done badly. Usually you get away with those type of ones. And Brighton went on to get a draw and possibly could have won it as well.
You seen the ref too. The ref was sort of like, I don't want to send you off here, but I kind of have to.
She said the bigger one was Veltman could easily went as well for the kick, but whatever reason they didn't feel it was enough. They sent him off. So Arsenal dropped 2 points, and of course the North London Derby's up next. And I was listening to Paul Merson today, and he was saying that he was very confident when Arsenal played Spurs last year. He's not feeling so confident this time due to how Arsenal have started. And he says he thinks Spurs have done pretty well despite having only 4 points, and that Declan Rice will be a huge must. So that North London Derby, possibly that Rice red card definitely gives Spurs a better chance of beating them.
100%. It's a more even game without their best midfielder there. Well, not their best midfielder, but they're in that position. But just you're speaking about Paul Merson. He also came out and said he would be astounded if Man United lost to Liverpool. So it doesn't have the best track record. But in terms of the North London Derby, it's going to be a more even game for sure. It's
Mm-hmm.
whether
Well,
it's whether Spurs can actually take the chances that they get, and we'll speak about it. But like I don't know what they're doing in training, but they have mountains of chances in games, and they just can't take them.
yeah. And of course, we'll talk about the North London Derby in more depth next week. Of course, that is next Sunday. So next Sunday week, we'll have the North London Derby. Brentford took on Southampton, beat them 3 goals to 1, and it's fair to say that Brentford didn't have to do much to win this game because Southampton were in the they were on the what's the word, the gifting mode, almost like
Aye.
Christmas come early for Brentford because Southampton were just playing out from the back, getting it all wrong. And Brentford, I mean, a better team. If they had done that to Man City, I mean, Man City would have put 20 past them because the chances that Brentford actually missed was incredible. And I think it was Jamie O'Hara says if they keep playing like that, I mean, they're going to be relegated come Christmas. But like we're Sheffield United and Burnley were last year, not mathematically relegated, but as good as down. And, it'll be interesting to see if, Southampton in the past haven't been as loyal. The managers like Burnley were pretty loyal last year. The company,
Yeah.
they stuck by him regardless of their criticism.
And he
But
went to buy.
Southampton are, they want to be in the Premier League. I know Russell Martin done a great job in the Championship. Their style of play was quite good, but this is a different beast. And I wonder if they keep losing, will there be as much loyalty to him as there was the company? And I don't think there would be.
No, I agree because they've probably looked at how it went with Burnley, and people were saying people in the media were saying, right, company, you have to sort of change up your style here, or it's not going to work, and it clearly didn't. And as we spoke about it, just as we were talking about the United Southampton game coming up next weekend, like if they play like that, United will, as much as they're poor, United will take the chances. So they need to get working on the training pitch in this next 7 days because some of them goals and chances they give off, you wouldn't see that in a under 12 games at times.
Um, I know, and then of course Everton after that, they
Oh,
were 2-0 up in the 86th, 87th minute and lost 3-2. Sean Dyche says he's never seen anything like it. And you don't usually associate with a Sean Dyche team, but as soon as Bournemouth got that first goal, they just capitulated. And Bournemouth had a chance they won it just before they scored the winner, and they didn't.
Pickford made the save.
And at that stage, Everton were gone. And I mean, that is worrying that you know what you're going to get with Sean Dyche. They're going to be tight, and they've not been tight at all. That's now 10 conceded in the first 3 games, and they're not a team that's going to score bags of goals. So, as much as I expected Everton to do well, not do well, but be a lot safer than they were this year, it's not started like that, and already they're under serious pressure.
Well, I saw a stat there that they haven't won a game in August under Sean Dyche, so they'll be glad that it's September now. But I've seen a lot of Everton fans criticizing Sean Dyche for his substitutions in that game. He took off. He
We're not happy with it either. We'd rather have Premier League on, but go ahead. Sorry, Sean, or go ahead. Go on.
Sean Dyche. Hi. If you get him on the podcast, that'll be fun, some crack. But no, he took off. He took off Ndai and he took off Ira Bunham, and I think I actually watched the game. He moved McNeil from the number 10 to the wide position, and that has substitutions just seem to collapse them. But I've never seen anything like it. Like
yeah, they sort of made them They sat back, didn't they? 2-0, thought the game was over, but one goal can change everything in the Premier League.
They could have been out of sight like before Bournemouth even had the chance to get one goal back. But again, it's down to taking your chances. So I would be concerned if I was an Everton fan because they do have some tough fixtures coming up as well, and I didn't have them as my relegation candidates. But the teams at the bottom this year they don't fill me with any confidence. There could be any number of teams that go down.
Yeah, that's that. Now Ipswich got off the mark. We had 1-1 draw against Fulham. I think this was one of the ones we tipped. We says we fancied a draw. We were right with this one. Ipswich. What's up?
They went 1-0 up, didn't they, Ipswich?
Great goal. They scored, and then Traore got Fulham back on level terms. And Fulham's away record was one of the reasons we decided that Ipswich might get something. Somewhere to start for Ipswich, but I think those are the games at home you need to be winning when you're playing a team with such a poor away record. You have to try and take advantage of it, and I'm just not sure they have enough. They put teams under pressure.
No, I I have them bottom. I have them finishing bottom, and you can't really judge them on playing Man City and Liverpool because they're always going to lose them games unless it's some miracle, which can happen. But as you say, these are the games that you have to be winning, especially at home when Fulham aren't the best away from home. And it was sort of a money rivalry with what went on in deadline day the night before with Nelson. So I think they'll be happy with the point going into national and going into this break, and they'll be hoping that they can build on it. But I don't see much. I don't see much hope for Ipswich staying up. And as for Fulham, I just think it's going to be another season of they'll play well one week and then they'll lose another week. It'll be just an up and down season.
Yeah. Leicester beaten by Villa 2-1. And I think again this was an hour game that if Leicester had a conceded or scored again, Villa would have had the same feeling Spurs have, where they should have really won more comfortably.
Onana's showing me up, hasn't he?
What's that?
Onana's showing me up, isn't he? I said it was an awful season.
Excellent so far. And like we says about Watkins, has had a slow start of the season, but Duran's again bangs on a goal, and it'll be interesting to see if that continues. Because Duran's putting up a pretty strong case to come under the team for Watkins at the moment.
Aye, and he had a good end the last season. Mind he came on against Liverpool and got the equaliser as well.
Yeah.
But for a man that seemed that they had one foot out the door in the summer, he was already joining West Ham. He's come to prove a point, and Ollie Watkins now I think he hasn't scored in his last 7 or 8 Premier League games.
Yeah, the Euros at the moment seems quite a long time away for Ollie Watkins. But Leicester's performances in the first 3 games, I mean they're lucky to have that 1 point against Spurs. I mean they've been pretty poor.
It doesn't fill you with confidence, and to be fair, the signings that they made as well. Edward, will he get you? He's a striker that scores 7-8 goals a season. Is that going to be enough to keep you up? Although they have avoided a points deduction, which will be a big boost to them. But as you say, going by their first 3 games of the season, it's looking to be a long one for Leicester.
Final 3:00 game. There's plenty of draws at the weekend. There was a third of the 1-1 draws on Saturday.
Yeah.
Forest and Wolves, both early goals. Nobody was able to get a winner. I suppose Wolves had to start somewhere, but like Ipswich, and getting a point on the road is always a positive when you're a team that's sort of tough to go down. But do you expect Wolves to improve now? And of course, Forest unbeaten in those first 3 games, but of course they'll play Bournemouth, Southampton, and Wolves. So games are going to get harder for Forest as well.
These are 2 teams that are going to be down. Well, no, Forest not so much maybe, but Wolves I put under the category of like Ipswich and Southampton this season. I just think I tipped them to go down. So I just think they're in for a tough season. They have signed Andre from Fluminense, who was heavily in Liverpool years ago. So it'll be interesting to see how that one works out. But there's not enough goals in the Wolves team, in my opinion. I think, and for Forest, I think they'll be okay.
Now, a lot of people thought this might be a tricky game for Man City, but Erling Haaland had different ideas, and he hits his second hat-trick of the season, back-to-back hat-tricks in the Premier League, and that takes him to 7 on the first 3 games. And I won't have to tell you, if he plays 38 games, I know you say the league isn't over, but it's going to be very hard for teams to compete, because if he stays fit, he could, put any number of goals he could score. He could even beat was it the 36 he scored?
36, 37.
On his first season, you wouldn't put him past hitting 40. But, he started like a train, and Man City are flying as well. Now, Liverpool are the only team they won their 3 games, so of course they're the closest at the moment, but they'll take confidence that Arsenal dropping points. And I think Paul Merson was saying that North London derby is big, because if Arsenal were to draw or lose that and City won, all of a sudden there's a gap there. And of course, Man City are a team you don't want to be chasing. So it's been a great start for Man City, and of course, Haaland.
What more can you say about him? Like, he's a machine. He's a robot. Like, and you were speaking there about Ollie Watkins and Nunez not taking their chances when they come. 9 times out of 10, sometimes 10 times out of 10, when he's running through on goal, the end result. He's won the Golden Boot already. Like, and we're only 3 games on, unless he has a bad injury, which I hope he doesn't, obviously. I re- um, but
That's what he said. You have to be honest with you, you love him to keel over.
I would no, I would love Man City just to keel over in general. But no, he's a machine, isn't he? And for Man City, they're usually slow starters, but it's scary now that they're not starting the season slow. So could be a tough watch for the rest of the league if this form keeps up.
Yeah, and of course West Ham, back to back defeats at home, and they did won the away game in between that at Palace, but of course they'll probably point to a difficult start against Villa and Man City. But I
Yeah.
suppose it's going to take time for them. But it's probably the way they were beating both those games. They didn't really lay a glove on either of them.
No, they were very poor in both of the home games, but as you say, it is a tricky start. Home to Villa and home to Man City. But I think West Ham will be comfortably mid table come the end.
Yeah, moving on to Sunday, we had our fourth 1-1 draw of the weekend.
Mhm.
Chelsea were wistful again in front of goal and could have really beat Palace, but Palace got a draw. And of course, they had a difficult start. Palace, they lost that first game away at Brentford under sort of controversial circumstances, but they lost to West Ham. But they have responded and they've got that first point on the board against Chelsea.
Yeah.
And that's somewhere they start for them.
Aye, it's been a tough start for them, especially, and they haven't lost a lot of main players. They've only really lost Elise, but I think I don't know if they'll kick on, but I think they'll take a lot of confidence from getting a point at Stamford Bridge. And as for Chelsea, it's just the same old story, isn't it? One week they batter a team 6-2, then they lose to Savet, and now they're drawing with Palace. So again, it could be an up and down season for Chelsea again, and they didn't get their main striker target in Victor Osimhen, which was random that he's ended up going to Galatasaray. But no, again, I think both of these teams will have up and down seasons.
Yeah, of course, United and Liverpool was the game we first talked about. So the only other game left was the game that played the curtain raiser for that game was a Newcastle and Spurs game. And I have to tell you, Spurs were probably even more dominant than they were against Leicester for the full
Yeah,
game this time. And they were punished again by, well, a really good finish for the first goal and the second goal, which was really poor defending. But again, so many chances. Nick Pope was constantly having to make saves.
yeah.
Last tackles from the likes of Dan Burn. Spurs really could have been out of sight and really put Newcastle away before, could have been 3 or 4-1 at least before that Newcastle winner came. And Spurs are paying a heavy price at the minute, the one for not putting these chances in the net.
I like when he's equalised through the own goal. I just thought it's a matter of time now before Spurs had had two, three, four, five here. But then one ball from Joe Linton just was it Joe Linton? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, Joe Linton. One ball. I don't know what Romero was doing for that. By the way, it was running away and that it was just poor defending, and
He's
you
been at
were
fault
punished.
for them 2 goals now against Leicester, the
Yeah,
equaliser, and the winner against Newcastle.
yeah, he's were poor defensively at the minute. But I know he's had no Van de Ven, but he can't crumble if one defender leaves. You know what I mean? But
Well, that's it. You
no,
can't just rely on him every week. And
yeah,
I know he's back for North London Derby, but there's a strong case. I thought Dragic was excellent.
yeah,
There's just
it was
drop Romero now. I know he's Argentina's sort of golden boy behind Messi. Messi thinks he's the best in the world centre back. I haven't seen that. I think he's very good in 1v1 duels. He's very good at tackling at times, although he does go over the board at times. But his
yeah,
actual intelligence at times, he's ball watching. He's not really focused on the runners. And when you're in this Spurs team, you got to be focused. And he looked really exposed there without Van de Ven, and I thought Dragic was excellent. And Spurs were caught down that side where Van de Ven usually is. And
yeah,
Romero cost Spurs. And look, it wasn't just him. You have to look at the strikers. You have to look at the attackers. Because I think, again, that's 3 games. Spurs' midfield 3 have dominated the opposition. And you look at
yeah,
midfield, maybe look at Everton and Leicester and you expect that. But Newcastle, midfield is one of the strongest areas of the team. You think about Bruno Guimaraes and Joelinton and Longstaff. And I mean, Newcastle were getting yellow cards left, right, and centre. I think every one of them was booked, and then they bring on Tonali, and
yeah.
he couldn't really change it. So Spurs were winning that midfield battle again, and it came down to really poor finishing. I know there's no striker on the pitch, but you got to be putting out those chances away.
And it just shows you that, as you were saying there, one lapse in concentration and you've lost the game. And for what could have been a good start for Spurs has been, yes, good performances, but a poor start because of the points tally, and it doesn't get any easier because he's of Arsenal. I know, we're saying it's a more even game, but the next game after international break is probably the biggest one for a Spurs fan. So it doesn't get any
Yeah, well,
easier.
if they don't take their chances against Arsenal, the same thing's going to happen because Arsenal have got too much quality in that final third that they will score.
Do you think Ange will be under pressure if they don't get anything from
Some
Arsenal?
Spurs fans are already saying, but I mean, I'm more interested in the performance levels at the moment. You
Yeah,
sort of spoke about United and you'd be concerned. But I mean, I think if Slanky had played on Sunday, he'd got off the mark because there was all those balls going across that final third. I mean, it wasn't just the kind of possession for it was most of the game was played in that final third of Newcastle in the second half,
yeah,
especially. They were just defending and kicking it away, and Spurs were coming back and thought Spurs were really good in the press. They won it back a number of times, and Madison was really good at that. He was nicking the ball, and Spurs was 3-on. It was 3v2 at times, and just the wrong pass, wrong decision. And then when he did get a good chance, it was scuffed or the keeper made a save. And look, I think Ange and Nick Pope had a great game, but I think a lot of the finishing was pretty poor. There was
yeah.
that one
To
save
be
from
honest,
Madison. I thought it was a really good save, but other than that,
yeah,
the rest of them were chances that you should do better. And I mean, he did gift that goal, Pope as well.
yeah. I don't know what I'm just saying. I thought apart from that one good save that you were saying there, I thought he had a very poor game in general.
Yeah, I think Dan Burn was man of the match for Newcastle because he was just he was making all these long
His
bits,
big,
long free
his
tackles.
big, his big long legs coming to fruition. But as you say, if Spurs don't take their chances against Arsenal, it's going to be the same story, and you'll be sitting on 4 points, and
But
that's not
the
good enough
reason that
either.
the derby is so important is if they lose that and play the same because they've lost the derby, it'll hurt more. So you will get that pressure.
Yeah,
But I kind of think that if it keeps going the way it's going, you're going to
it'll
win more
turn
games than you
eventually.
lose. You're going to win more games
I
than
it'll turn eventually. It's just whether Spurs can keep the ball out of their own net as well.
yeah. Just fingers crossed. No injuries in this international break. Van de Ven and Solanke back. So gotta feel that you're going to be putting out your strongest team against Arsenal. And of course, they're missing
Yep.
Rice. So there was a question on screen there about our thoughts ahead of Ireland and England, and that's what we're going to discuss next one. Of course, Ireland play England tomorrow at 5 o'clock UK and Ireland time. Who have you got on? How do you see this game going? Because I mean, England definitely, no mistake about it, have much better players. I don't think one Ireland player would get near the squad. But we've
No.
seen England against teams in the Euros that they should have been expected. They completely destroyed. They didn't, and it became quite difficult. So should Ireland take confidence from that? That England aren't they weren't great at the Euros. They had a decent 45 against Holland, and I think a decent 45 against Switzerland. But other than that, they were pretty poor and very fortunate to get as far as they did. Ireland are a type of team that could frustrate. So I mean, as it's beyond doubt that Ireland can't get a result on Saturday.
As much as I would love to say we will get a result, I can't see it, to be honest.
No. What kind of reception do you think Declan Rice will get on Saturday? Because I think Jack Grealish will probably not start, even the bench, but Rice you'd expect to start. So
let's just say I don't think it'll be a warm welcome. Put it that way. I don't think it'll be. I don't think they'll be buying him Guinness after the game. Put it that way.
what are you expecting from Ireland? I think there's been rumours that it won't be as open as it was under Kenny. That might revert back to a more structured. We have what we hold. Maybe not so much the Martin O'Neill days of just lump it long, but
Yeah.
Iceland. This is a manager that's done a job in England with Iceland at the Euros, and they were very, defensive, structured, but also there was a plan there when they did get chances to go forward. So you expect in Ireland they try and they stop be the next sort of Spain team and the taka stuff. You think they'll go back to the old days of being hard to beat and try and nick results from set pieces and sort of counterattacks?
You have to, because we don't have the players to play that style of open football, and it's painful to say, but we just don't. Our players aren't good enough to play that style. And England, if we go toe to toe England tomorrow, we'll get battered. Like we just will because of the players that they have.
It'll be interesting to see how England play because there's a lot of calls for Carsley. They say they have to get on the front foot and have to dominate games. Are you expecting that to change under Carsley? Do you think he'll move away from that Southgate rigid sort of when it comes to playing teams that are even the teams that they were like? I think they've better players in Switzerland, but they didn't really go after Switzerland.
Yeah.
you'd assume England will qualify for the World Cup when they come up against the big teams. If Garsley's done a good job in this, I think he's got every chance to win this group, and he'll be kept on. And you'd expect them to win their World Cup group because of their ranking. Whoever they play are going to be weaker than them. You think when it comes around the World Cup, we'll see a different England, a more front foot England, or do you think there's a lot? It's more of a DNA problem because it's been whatever manager they've had, they've struggled to play that kind of front foot football.
No, I do think we'll see more front foot football. That's hard to say, but I think we'll see more of that because I think England fans won't accept if it's still defensive. We'll hit you in the counter attack. We'll try and nick a goal. So I do think we'll see more attacking from England. And
do you think?
To be fair,
do you think he comes in with less pressure on him because if he gets him playing attacking football, it will appease England fans, and you'd expect to win these games in a way that it'll buy him time because they're just so sick of the Southgate. A bit like when Spurs with Conte and Mourinho, they were just sick of that crap sit back football. That when Ajax come on, it was like a breath of fresh air. Do you think if Garsley does that the fans will get behind him?
I think so. And it's funny enough because Lee Kersley was actually on my shortlist to become the new Ireland manager. When that was coming up, but sadly went to the other side. But no, I think it will buy him time. And to be honest, I think if he does well here, I do think he'll be the next permanent manager. And some of his selections for the squad has been very interesting.
We'll finish off on talking about Ireland because, of course, this group season come up against England, Finland, and Greece. Or Greece more recently, but they've done a job on them in the Euros qualifying campaign. Of course, they played Finland in a recent Europe that Nations League, and they lost both games. So, not great history between Ireland and these teams are playing. So, do you see them as the weakest in this four?
He would have to based on past games, wouldn't he?
So what do you think's success? Because I think somebody made a comment. I think Megan Richards says this Nations League's not really important. Well, I think it's more important to Ireland than it is to England because there's a chance that it can get you a playoff. We've seen that with Scotland. So Ireland aren't going to be one of the there's a good chance they won't qualify out of the. So you can bank yourself a playoff here if you finish well enough. If you get the second in the group, for example, if England won it, if Ireland find a way to get second, there's a good chance that they'll find themselves in a playoff spot come the World Cup. So, is that the target, do you think? Be competitive and try and get points against the likes of Finland and Greece and maybe even try and get a draw at home to England on Saturday?
We have to try. We've been starved of, let's be honest, if Ireland get their major tournament, we're not going, right, we're not going to challenge they want it. It's just being there is what we want.
Haven't been in the World Cup since 2002. So, you think about this next World Cup, it's 2026, 24 years since the World Cup. But there's no evidence to suggest that's going to happen, but is it?
No.
At best, I think we're going to finish third in this group, and that's being generous. I don't see us being overcoming the Greeks and the Finnish. And that's not to think I think we're great sides. I just don't think I think the level of player we have at the moment, there's not many of them playing at even Premier League football, is there?
No, I agree. I think we're the weakest team in the group, which is sad to say because years gone by, like you're speaking of that 2002 World Cup, we had a decent team. So it's sad to see the state of Irish football at the minute on both sides, to be honest. Even though they won last night, and the manager doesn't inspire me either, to be honest.
Yeah. I think he's more experienced at pulling teeth out than he does managing teams. But look, we'll have to see. It's who we got. How do you see Saturday's game going? Predictions before we finish.
I'll go 2-0 England.
2-0 England. I'm going to give Ireland a chance. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Hey, I'd bite your hand off right now.
Owen, thanks for coming on. Always a good show. Of course, we'll be back next week. We'll probably not do an early show because there's no Premier League football this weekend. So we'll be coming back towards the end, probably around this time next week, and we'll be doing the weekend preview. Of course, the North London derby will be the major focus of that. Spurs and Arsenal, always great games. And I'm sure we'll get an hour entertaining one on Sunday week. Owen, thanks for coming on. I'll see you very soon. If you're new around here, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content.
Cheers.